thank you ever so much for rejoining us this afternoon. It's for our final fireside, our penultimate fireside chat here on stage 2 at Procurement and Supply Chain Live 2023. This one, we are looking at supply chain transformation. What is your end goal? Which is a statement that's come up an awful lot in this room over the last 2 days. Delighted to say we are joined by Vidya Malkani, Procurement and Supply Chain Director at the American University of Sharjah. So, a warm welcome for Vidya, please. I love the title of this because it rounds up perfectly so much of what we've been talking about. Everyone's been talking about the importance of why and the end goal and where you're wanting to get to. And this, coming towards the end of the second day, rounds that up beautifully. So that's our focus today. But where we'll start is how you've approached procurement supply chain transformation in your professional career. What's generally your personal approach to beginning that process? Because that's often the hardest step.
Absolutely. That is one of the most hardest steps. You have to understand what are you trying to achieve. I mean, awful lot of times we say, yes, we need to transform. We've heard a lot of speakers in the last 2 days who've said brilliant things, and we are doing that, but that's a lot. Whether it's digital transformation, operational, organizational, it requires a lot of effort in addition to what we're doing on day-to-day basis, right? So for me, my personal approach has always been, you need to prioritize. You cannot obviously achieve everything in one go. So what is important? So for me, my approach is I look at some of the key factors to determine how and which projects should be prioritized first. So I start with purpose, right? Now purpose from procurement and supply chain. When I transform, what am I going to achieve from that project? And it's to say I want to become digital is not the end goal, it's the means, right? So am I trying to be more efficient? Am I trying to bring cost efficiency? Am I trying to be agile? What is that purpose? And I think of a lot of times we miss that point when we start a journey, and we realize this somewhere in the middle of a project. So it's very important to ask the question, what does this mean for procurement? What will I do once I take this journey? The second most important point is organizational goals, right? For me, I want to become digital or I want to become agile, but is that matching the goals of the organization? I mean, if I'm going to say cost efficiency is my goal, but the organization is after quality, I'm not delivering success. And I don't think so I'm going to get the right buy-in from the organization either. So it's very important to also consider what are the top priorities for the organization. The next one that I usually look at is timelines. Is it a quick win? Is my project going to be a quick win? Or is it going to be a multi-year project? If it's going to be a multi-year project, I need to really think about fluidity and flexibility, because, I mean, we're talking about AI, we're talking about climate change. Obviously, in the 2 years, from the point I start the project, it's not going to be the same. So am I able to build that flexibility? If not, then that project cannot be my top priority, because I'm not going to have success at the end of the project. Then the next thing I look at is positioning of procurement, right? At the end of the day, whatever transformation that we set on, we should be able to reposition ourselves. There were some very interesting terms which were used in the last 2 days. Are we going to be disruptors? Are we going to be adding value? You know, what is it that, how am I going to position? But for this, you need to know, where are you today? What is your true state today? If you are a paper pusher, then value addition is obviously which should be your end goal. But if you're already adding a value, then you want to be a disruptor. So this transformation project, how close does it take you to that, right? And the last bit for me is change management. What is the culture of the organization? How much resistance am I going to have, right? And digital is a perfect example. In my time at the university, we started doing digital transformation, and we at some point realized that, we're talking about going digital and paperless, but my professors still prefer writing on a blackboard. So how am I going to get the adoption from them? So you need to really consider how much of an effort for the change management is going to go in there, how much is that going to contribute towards my success, and how am I going to change that? So for me, this is broadly how I look at how every project tags to these key areas. And then I decide where am I going to get the most value. And those are the projects I always go for first.
Let's break that down, because there's some really key bits I want to go into there. Let's start with that prioritization, because I know whenever I do webinars or interviews on that particular subject, when people are trying to pick where to start and where, if there's a lot of work to do, you've got to start somewhere. And there could be competing forces within a business about what they think the priority should be.
Yep.
How do you pick? Do you need a lot of buy-in from the rest of the business on what those priorities are before you even get started? How do you go about working out a hierarchy of what needs to be done first?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. Let me break that down into two pieces. First, how do I decide what do I even want to do, right? So if I am not listening to my audience, which is my stakeholders, if I'm not hearing what their pain point is, what exactly am I going to change, right? So it starts there. You have to very actively listen and engage with the stakeholders to understand what exactly is wrong, what is it that needs to be fixed, or what is the problem statement. You have to go look for it first. It's very well said and done that I'm sitting, my buyers come to me and say, well, Vidya, I have too much work. Great, that is a problem, but how does it impact the business? So you have to speak to business, get that insight, and again, let's face it, we're a service function. We're always going to hear complaints, but you need to filter good feedback from somebody's perception, right? So when you separate the two, you take that and you hear, when I say stakeholders, your team is also your stakeholder. You need to listen to them, what are their challenges, and then you need to, again, marry the two and come up with the matrix to say, is this the right project that I want to set forward on? Now, getting buy-in. So this is something very interesting, because you have to always speak the language of the business. Right? If I go and tell my senior management, I want to implement a P2P solution, I'm just taking an example here, because it's going to reduce my process time. Great, but how does it matter to the business? But if I go and say that, I will be, by implementing this project, I will be able to deliver goods to the professors with a reduced timeline of 25%, which means that they will be able to run their classes smoothly. Yes, now they understand what I'm saying. So you can't put value proposition as procurement. The value proposition has to always be business. You have to always speak their language, because then there is the support you get from them.
You were talking a bit at the end of the previous answer about buy-in. And maybe some rather analog people within an organization who are still using a blackboard, for example. From your experience, when you're facing those kind of challenges, how do you overcome them?
So with that particular challenge, the example that we took, what we did was we actually went to these professors and we started talking to them to understand what did they not like about procurement. And we took words from there. And that kind of helped me build a story which I could tell them. And that's how we got the buy-in from them. And we took small steps. We did not say, okay, come in, you need to use the full system from today. We did bits and pieces. We went with a very small first step, because I think that first very small step is the most hardest step. Once you take that, the journey becomes easier.
One thing we've spoken a lot about today is about the joker in every organisation, that is the people. They don't always do what you want them to do, however many times you email them. It might work, I don't know. When you're dealing with people in that situation, how important is it to remember that there are people involved and they won't necessarily interact with the technology as you'd like them to? How far and how long does that help and support need to go for?
So there are two kinds of answer for this. One, you have to be very realistic. If you expect 100% adoption, I think you're living in a different world. So you need to define at a very beginning of the project, what is the success going to look like for you? So today, if you're paper-based and the response rate is X, you should not assume that it'll 100% shift on the other side, because that can never happen. I mean, you can't change the human nature. It is what it is. So setting the expectation right is one. Two, how much support you give them. Again, like I said, in my case, what I did was I put my team to go and sit with the stakeholders in their offices, because I wanted to be very aggressive to make sure that we get adoption. Once you get adoption from X group of people who are going to be your champions, they will help flow that message down. And that is something, I mean, every company has a different ecosystem. You need to figure out what that ecosystem is. What is the best way of flowing that message down? So be realistic and figure out the right methodology which works in your organization. Because one particular methodology cannot work for everybody or every organization.
You say about being realistic. Is it important to be very almost humble and honest with yourself, though, going through that kind of process, to look for the things you could have done better and look for those places of improvement? How do you go about doing that?
So let's put it this way. We are transforming so much, and there is so much happening in procurement as a space, which is very interesting, right? So it also gives us the opportunity of working on different projects and taking the learnings and feeding it into the next one that you do. And that's how you improve yourself. So that is something which we have done. Like I mentioned to you, we went on a journey of a P2P, and then we realized, well, professors are still using Blackboard. And we had not considered that when we started the project. However, when we did other pieces of technology, we were very aware of that. So we used the opportunity to our advantages, and we made sure that we took that learnings and we approached things differently. So yes, it is very important to be true to yourself and not go on ambitious plans when you think they're not going to be achievable.
Because what's the risk if you lose sight of the end goal? If you get distracted, if you take on technology for technology's sake, that's something we were speaking about earlier. What's the risk there? How badly wrong can it go?
So usually, I'm going to take a very different example. You know, when you present reports to senior leadership, right? It's often said that the attention span is going to be 3 seconds. And if you don't have enough attention in 3 seconds, nobody's going to listen to you. So it's something similar, that if your first step goes wrong, I think your stakeholders will start losing interest and may also not trust you as much with the further projects that you're going to do. So it's very important that you pick your first project and pick a small one, achieve a quick win from a smaller project, make sure that is a success, put your entire heart and soul in it. And once that is a success, that is your platform to get more buy-in, more support from stakeholders. They may actually, and I have seen that, stakeholders come and say, well, oh, that was done very well, but I have this problem, can you help me with this? And this is where the collaboration comes from. So it is important that your first win is really a successful one. Because if that fails, I'm afraid that it's going to be a lot more harder to achieve success with the next ones.
Moving on to technology, it's something I've asked a lot of our guests today, and it's something that's come up time and again, about how you go about picking the right technical partners, the right technology partners to make your transformation work, because it's going to play a part in it, in a modern transformation strategy. Your advice on how you go about picking the right ones, because everyone says they've got the right solution.
I think, going back to what I said earlier, that you need to first figure out what is your end goal, isn't it? So for me, when I was picking technology, my key 3 top things were, I wanted a simple solution, I wanted something which was very user-friendly so that my stakeholders don't run away, right? And third, I did not want something very expensive. So those were my criteria of picking what I wanted. You have to be very clear in what exactly are you doing, right? And that you marry, when you look at suppliers, we looked at a lot of different solution providers and we said, okay, what is right for us? And when we said, okay, is it user-friendly? If it did not tick the box, I did not look at it. So again, it's important to understand what are you trying to achieve. I mean, digitalization is great, but are you looking to convert your processes into a digital format? Are you looking to transform your existing processes into something more meaningful? Those are 2 different things. And obviously, there are different technology providers for those.
You're clearly passionate about the work you do. That comes across. Of the transformation journey you've been on, what is the area you're most proud of?
Okay, so I can speak about sustainability. We've heard that a lot in today and yesterday's sessions. So within my organization, what the organization was looking to do was to position itself as a sustainable university. And there was a lot of work which was done in that area. So we sort of capitalized on that because we were looking at making procurement sustainable as well as we were looking at improving our supplier relationship management, right? So what we did was we married the two, we looked at both, and we said, okay, how can we achieve organizational goal within the scope 3? What is it that we can do? So we created a sustainability and an innovation center within supply chain. And this was basically a collaboration with our supplier network. We worked with them to bring market intelligence, not just in form of information, but physical products. And then we invited our stakeholders to come and see what was available. So we bought them the market intelligence. The response was amazing. We never thought that it would be received so well. We managed to get a 16% shift of our spend towards sustainable products. And I think that was a very, very interesting journey that we had. And it was something very simple because even our suppliers were very, very interested in showing us what they had. So I think when you have an organization which can influence your supplier network, this is a great way to go because then you are also asking and helping your suppliers to grow into sustainable environment. So I think this has been one of the projects which I thought was very, very well received.
Absolutely. I am wanting to look into future trends in a second, but I'll quickly go to the room. Are there any particular questions anyone has at this point, or shall I continue through to the end? No, I will continue because I want to look at future trends. For you, what is it there that's particularly exciting you in terms of future trends, in terms of transformation, about where things go next?
I think one area is operating model. I mean, procurement's operating model has been transforming since I joined, or I started my journey in procurement to what it used to be to what it is today. Within my own organization, when I did the transformation, we had maybe multiple shifts. So we started with introducing business partners, positioning them to get more buy-in from the stakeholders, to spread more awareness of the processes. And once we did that, we had the flexibility to quickly switch those roles then into data scientist, performance analyst. So we started looking at the future roles and what we needed. And I think with the way things are going, we are going to continue to transform that operating model. And I think that will be a very, very interesting journey for us.
Absolutely. Vidya, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed your company. Round of applause for Vidya, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.